I rise today to speak on the State Tax Amendment Bill 2023, a bill that I believe will further contribute to Victoria's cost of living crisis. I stand in fierce opposition to this bill, a bill that enacts the payroll and land tax changes outlined in the brutal state budget handed down last week. Someone needs to stand up for the 6.8 million Victorians who are set to be worse off under this budget, and that is what the opposition is doing. Since Labor was elected 9 years ago, Victoria's tax rate is set to double as nearly 50 new taxes have been introduced. This bill is littered with taxes on aspiration and taxes on a fair go. Labor's school tax, Labor's rent tax, Labor's job tax and Labor's debt tax are all taxes on hard-working Victorians at a time when we can least afford it. We believe in giving Victorians every opportunity to get ahead, not taxing them for the pleasure. Where is the Australia that's the land of opportunity? One that we promote to new citizens when they take their oath of citizenship? Or the land of the fair go, where hard work will be rewarded and rewards come to those who give it a go? Where is the state that for years has been home to the world's most livable city? What a joke when our residents can't afford to live, work or play here under the Andrews Labor government. This government is asking hard-working Victorians to foot the bill of their financial incompetence, and we have had enough. This is a budget that punishes Victorians for trying to get ahead, and ultimately, despite all this, net debt is still forecast to grow to a staggering $171.4 billion within 4 years. Life is going to get harder for regional Victorians under Labor, with this budget slashing funding in key areas including regional roads, health and agriculture. Victoria's regional roads will stay in a state of disrepair, with maintenance funding slashed by 45% since 2020, from $702 million to just $441 million in the last year alone. There have been 124 deaths on Victorian roads in 2023, which is 30% more than this time last year. That's 124 Victorian families who are grieving, and instead of having a heart and pledging to fix the state of the roads, this government rips hundreds of millions of dollars from the road maintenance. Politicians in this government seem to have lost touch with reality, but please know this budget will have devastating consequences of the lives of regional Victorians. Key regional economic drivers like agriculture have suffered in this budget, with funding down 34% on last year, from $687.3 million to $454.8 million. Cuts to regional development continue, with spending halved from $211 million to $106 million in this year's budget. These cuts are not new. Since 2020, it has been slashed by 80%. This is on top of the sustainable native timber industry being shut down ahead of schedule, a death warrant for communities in the state's east. Victorian farmers and farm businesses continue to weather uncertain international markets and will now face cuts to trade and global development. $60.3 million, or almost 60%, has now been cut from this since 2020. What will be left of our state when all our primary industries are shut down? People are jobless, industries are outsourced, and communities are decimated by becoming once prosperous ghost towns. I've talked about our regional roads and the risk to the lives of those who are on them daily, but what for our health system, which is supposed to care for these people? Victorians are being punished for Labor's financial incompetence, as state budget figures confirm the Andrews government will cut $1 billion from the health budget. And this comes amidst the backdrop of an ageing population and post-COVID recovery. Cuts to healthcare continue under this government, with a $2 billion cut to health in last year's budget and further cuts this year, meaning health expenditure will fall from $28 billion to $27 billion in 2023-24. Community health will also suffer this financial year, with $100 million cut from vital community health programs that actively work to prevent further stress on our hospitals. Elective surgery waitlists remain high and ambulance response times continue to fail to hit targets. Thanks to Labor's financial mismanagement of the health system, patients aren't getting the health services they deserve or the services that they critically need. What about our next generation? If you're a family hoping to send your children to an independent school, it will cost you an extra $1,000 per year every single year for the next decade. If you're hoping to invest in the property market, you'll pay an extra $1,000 a year for the privilege, and you'll go on paying an extra $1,000 every year for the next 10 years. If you're a business wanting to grow and employ more people, you'll be slogged with higher payroll tax. If you're looking to buy a new home and land package, you'll be paying more because developers will now be paying more in land tax. And if Victorians are hoping for a pay increase this year, I also have bad news. This budget increases payroll tax when the government's own Department of Treasury and Finance has demonstrated that lower payroll taxes result in higher wages for employees. For tens of thousands of families across the state, this budget will cost them $30,000 over the next decade. We oppose these costs on Victorians, and we oppose taxes on aspiration and taxes on a fair go. This brutal budget has simply come at a time when Victorians can least afford it. Living costs are rising, and new higher taxes are not the way to solve this. There are growing financial pressures and increasing difficulty for people to meet their everyday expenses and maintain a decent standard of living and save for the future. Several factors contribute to the cost of living crisis, including housing affordability, rising utility costs, healthcare expenses, and stagnant wage growth. None of these factors will be resolved through these taxes. Victoria, particularly in regional areas, has experienced a surge in property prices and rental costs over the years. The demand for housing, coupled with limited supply, has driven up prices, making it increasingly difficult for individuals and families to afford suitable accommodation. I, like many others, have serious concerns over the introduction of the new land tax. This land tax will only increase the growing strain on people trying to get by. What's more, it will do nothing to address rental affordability for those looking for a house because the pressure will go up the chain. The new annual charge is expected to apply to about 380,000 homeowners who would previously not have paid the tax. In towns across the Euroa electorate, the lack of supply for housing has already seen rental prices soar. Data earlier this year showed the Strathbogie Shire, which sits in my electorate, saw the largest percentage increase in the median rental price across the entire state. The median price of houses in the area rose 19.1% to $420 a week, after just $353 in December 2021. Neighbouring council areas, Alpine, Campaspe and Indigo also saw significant rises, with rent increasing by over 13% in each shire. 10 council areas in the state posted double-digit rent rises. In the township of Euroa, there are few homes available for rent and costs have increased significantly. This extra strain on property owners and landlords will see this burden grow even more. On top of the impact on the prices that the housing crisis has had, right across the state we have waitlists for housing that are completely out of control. There are hundreds of people urgently waiting for housing in towns right across the Euroa electorate, including Seymour, Benalla and the Broadford district. Homelessness is already a concern in my electorate. From 2012 to 2019, nearly 1,200 people in the Mitchell, Strathbogie and Benalla LGAs had required support from specialist homelessness services. These taxes will only amplify this issue when the housing crisis is in dire need of being solved. I'm regularly contacted by people who are in desperate need of housing, and they are continually being told there is simply no supply to house them. Recently, I had my colleague, the member for Kew, Jess Wilson, visit my electorate to meet with key stakeholders across the housing industry, including the real estate agents, builders, developers and contractors, to discuss the hurdles facing increasing housing supply. We heard that prospective regional homeowners were being hit with a double whammy of increased prices and exponentially rising interest rates. Of course, there's nothing in the budget to increase supply or to even address the investors coming back to the market. It begs the question as to who was consulted on these taxes when the Real Estate Institute of Victoria calls them a horror move. More taxes on everyday Victorians is not the answer. I want people to be able to grow up, raise their family and own a home in their own community without having to save for decades and be burdened by taxes. These taxes are going to make it much more difficult for young people, for vulnerable people, for everyday people who are simply asking for a roof over their head. Victorians already have enough on their plates. Everyday constituents come into my office, say they are concerned about the rising energy prices, describing the impact on their livelihoods that these rises are having. Multiple people visited my electorate office last week asking for directions to clothing bins and food banks. Many hardworking Australians are now finding it unmanageable. At a time where things are tough, the taxes in this bill do nothing but promote stagnant wage growth. Victorian families are struggling to maintain their standard of living despite working hard and earning a regular income. Businesses and job creation will be stifled through these taxes, not just big businesses, as this government suggests. You cannot tax your way to prosperity. Instead, it piles on the burden when we can least afford it.